Hey everyone, thank you very much for your well wishes. I'll find out how the exam went in 8 weeks. So I'd like today to go over a few things and discuss our major priorities for the upcoming season 2 of How the Faces of Advocacy will be. I would first like to thank very much the team for doing all the work they've been doing, not only in getting our exemptions, but also keeping the ship smooth sailing while I was studying for the exam. So thank you, every single one of you, for doing so much work. All right, so let's outline the main priorities moving forward. Number one, the system. So priority number one is dealing with fixing the system and making sure it works for all of us. So first, I understand that some of the exemptions are coming in out of order. So those who applied on the early days, the 8th and the 9th, a lot of us, including myself, have not gotten our exemptions. So as it turns from our own internal polling, it looks like about 64% of all the approvals that we've gotten have come from the first 2 days. So that still means more than half of the approvals have come in from the first 2 days that people have applied. Now, of course, ideally it would have been 100% on the first 2 days, and then they go to the next 2 days and they do it in order. But just to abate the majority of concerns there, the majority of the approvals have come from that time. Now, here are the issues. The issues are that it is disproportionately much lower if you're a US applicant from the first 2 days. In addition to that, of the first 2 days, people who have applied, only about 37% of those in our internal polling who've applied in the first 2 days have gotten their exemption. So while that means the majority of us who've applied and have gotten the approvals have come in from the first 2 days, it is still less than 40% of the overall first 2 day applications that have actually been approved. So we're doing our best to figure out with IRCC why that's occurring and also why disproportionately US applicants seem to have lower numbers. It's very important to me that we do not go after each other and do not take out our attention on each other, given this has been a difficult rollout and a difficult battle for all of us for many, many months. I understand it's very stressful. But I am imploring all of you to please be kind to one another. And there will be mistakes done by people who might say the wrong thing, who might feel differently. We're doing our best as a team. We ask you, all the members of the group, to please just be kind to one another. I'm really trying to find out a solution. Honest to goodness, I'm trying to find out a solution. One major issue with the system not working on priority number one is if you are an international student with a student visa for a Canadian university, we still do not have full clarity in writing on what happens if you reunite with your Canadian partner under this extended family exemption. So I want to make sure that that piece works out as well. We are doing our best to find that clarity. Everyone, I know this is very stressful. I cannot make it more clear that I myself, my own partner, the one who started Faces of Advocacy with me, she does not have her exemption either. So we are not forgetting people. We're still pushing. We just don't have the clarity. We were given 14 business days for the turnaround, and that will be on October the 28th. I am planning things in the event that that day is not held. However, I do believe that that day will be held for the vast majority of us. I'm under the standing that that any person with a delay will be for other reasons, not because of the extended family exemption. There have been some discussions on whether or not the system requires you to reapply. We've been asked to not get people to reapply because that will slow down applications for every single person for reapplying. If you are sent an email asking for more information, that's not a denial. If you're sent an email saying, oh, you don't need an approval, that's not a denial. All that means is you have to respond back to that email or contact them again to let them know that you've been given the wrong response. This has classically worked for people to get their exemption. this is the best guidance we have, but we're leaving this to the IRCC to answer. We understand IRCC has given different answers. We've internalized all the responses of our members, and we're contacting IRCC directly about that. So priority number 1 is making the system work for those who are eligible. Now, here's priority number 2. Temporary residents are currently not eligible on this. A lot of you have mentioned that even though you're secure and now you can be with your loved ones, that you'll still fight for those who cannot, and I thank you for that. We need to make sure that temporary residents are given the same exemptions. So there will be 2 methods in which to get them the exemptions. 1 is a change in the order in council, like what we have, or 2, their current internal system, which is by an email process or something, will work for them. So that'll be a big focus for us. As soon as we figure out to get the system working, we want the temporary residents done properly, but that is in our messaging. And that is in my public messaging as well. Priority number 3 is Part A and Part B. Priority number 3 are those who cannot reunite because of the 15-day requirement. I'm using this term very particularly because this is not fighting quarantine. This is addressing the 15-day requirement. So a foreign national coming to Canada must stay for 15 days. I know there is a section in the Order of Council that says that a person can leave within 2 weeks as long as they quarantine their entire time in Canada. This does not apply to people who come in under the family reunification exemption. Doing so would be breaking the Order in Council. I understand there are people who have done this. I do not recommend that because we don't know the long-term immigration repercussions. So the 15-day stay is challenging for people. So priority number 3 has Part A and Part B. Part A is simply to allow foreign nationals the same exemption that the Canadians have. We want to make sure that the foreign national is allowed to come in for less than 15 days, and then during that time, they can leave Canada provided they quarantine. That is the priority here. The second major priority, in regards to that same topic, is to see whether or not we would be able to get foreign nationals the opportunity to, while they're in Canada, their rapid testing done. Now, testing right now, though, is not at a place that will completely save us. I know that a lot of people are thinking, oh, we get a test and it'll be okay. And I know Canada is starting to do more testing. But right now, our major concern is if the foreign national can have the same rules as us. So priority number 2 and priority number 3A, both of them are essentially expanding the system that we've already won and fought for. So that means temporary residents get the same benefits that the Canadians and permanent residents get. And then foreign nationals will be allowed to leave Canada under the same time frame that Canadians can do. I realize that won't help everyone, but priority 2 and priority 3A are the things that we'll be able to advocate for and I believe can win. So that's something very important to us. Now, many of you might be thinking, okay, but if the foreign national can leave within 15 days, but the Canadian still has to quarantine, that's not going to help us. I understand that. That's what 3B is. But 3B, and this is very important to understand, a shorter quarantine for the Canadian, if they meet someone you assume is COVID positive, like a foreign national, even with a negative test. But the point is we're dealing with a shorter quarantine for Canadian. That's a much different and a much bigger battle. That's what 3B is. So 3B would be then applying to restaurant workers. Oh, what happens when you have a customer who comes in who might have had COVID? Well, the waiter has to self-isolate for 2 weeks. But the minute that our discussion comes in where the foreign national meets the Canadian and the Canadian has to quarantine for 2 weeks, if we say that that Canadian doesn't have to, then suddenly we're dealing with the workforce in Canada. We're dealing with other things within Canada. So that is an entirely different battle, and that's a huge one. That is not one that we can go in haphazardly. That is something that we need good testing for. I understand there are other groups like Better Borders, and we have a lot of people looking into that. But right now, 3B, the Canadian self-isolation after seeing the foreign national, that's something that we don't necessarily have a solution for right now. But it's something that we have to keep our minds on. So once again, priority number one is making the system that we have right now work. So it has to work for the Americans, it has to work for the international people, it has to work for those who applied early, it has to work for students. So that's number one. Number two is temporary residents should be able to have what we have. And then 3A is an expansion of what we have to include foreign nationals who can leave Canada within 15 days. 3B, which is a shortening of quarantine requirements, is a completely different battle, a much bigger one, and it's something that we'd have to focus on in the longer term once testing's at a place that can keep us safe. So these are the major things. Thank you for taking the time with me when I was studying for my exam. I'm more present now, but I still have other things in my life that have taken time, but I'll be more present day to day. Thank you very much to the team. Thank you very much for everyone who's been here and working so hard to advocate for us. And if the IRCC is watching this, all the workers at the ministry, thank you very much for working on this. I know this was not your decision. To all our members, please be kind to the workers at the IRCC. The decision makers are a different discussion point as to why we're here, but the workers were put in this very difficult position, and we are thankful for them for their work. Okay, let's talk to you guys soon. 3, 2, 1.